Hello, I'm Alex. Welcome to part 4 of this How to Play Dropzone Commander video series. In the last video we went over how to read stat cards for units, including their weapons. In this video we're going to cover movement, including aircraft and transports. Like most wargames, Dropzone Commander is played in inches. The standard board size is 4 foot by 4 foot, or 48 inches by 48 inches. But boards can be larger, sometimes up to 6 by 4 foot. As we covered in a previous video, whenever a squad activates, it's able to do 2 actions but can't do 2 of the same action. One of those actions is moving, so usually the maximum distance a squad can move is that squad's movement characteristic. In Dropzone, movement and weapon range is always measured from the centre of the model. So to move my sabres here, I just measure up to 4 inches from the centre and place the model there. The model can pivot for free during that movement and can be set up with any facing at the end of it. The movement doesn't have to be in a straight line, so I can move 2 inches to a corner and then 2 inches around it if I like. Remember that every model in a squad does the same action at the same time, so after I finish the move action of my first sabre, I then do a move action with all of the other sabres. Unit coherency is simple. The only rule is that every model in the squad must be within coherency range of at least one other model in the same squad. Coherency range is 2 inches for infantry, 6 inches for aircraft, and 3 inches for anything else. Breaking coherency can be done voluntarily. All this really does is apply a +1 accuracy penalty to that squad for any weapons it wants to shoot. It can be a valid tactic to deliberately break coherency to spread out more to avoid area weapons, or to spread the influence of any aura effects the squad might have. So as you've probably realised, on a 48 inch by 48 inch board, a 4 inch movement is not going to get you very far at all, particularly when most units start off the board. That's where transports come in. Squads will usually start the game embarked in a transport. In fact, if they don't, they start in reserve and therefore can't even enter the board in the first round of the game. A squad in a transport can disembark as a part of its own movement action. You simply set up every model or every unit in the squad within 2 inches of the transport, and then the squad that has disembarked takes the rest of its movement action. The transport can have already moved, or it can move in its own activation after the disembarking squad finishes its activation. So let's go through a couple of examples. I've got here my armour battle group consisting of 3 sabres being transported by a Condor dropship. I've also got my frontline battle group of 3 Legionnaire bases forming one squad in a Bear APC, which is in its own Condor dropship. So I'll start by activating my armour battle group. The Condor the sabres are in automatically activates with the battle group, so I'll activate it and move it first. The Condor has a movement of 18 inches, so I move it up to 9 inches and land it by taking it off its flying stand. Remember that units can only embark into or disembark from an aircraft that is only moving up to half its movement speed in that round. If it goes further than that, they can't get out. After I've done the Condor's movement action, I could then choose to fire its gun as a shooting action and then end its activation. Next, I activate the sabres. They make a move action and disembark, so I set them up within 2 inches of the Condor. They then get to move up to their movement characteristic of 4 inches. In practice, you'll usually just set the models up within their movement plus 2 inches of the transport. Once they finish their movement action, they can then shoot with their weapons. Now for my infantry. After my opponent has an activation, it comes back to me and I activate my frontline battle group of Legionnaires. They are embarked in a Bear APC, which activates with them, and the Bear is in a Condor that also activates with the battle group, as it's carrying something that's carrying something in the battle group. So I do the same thing. I activate and move my Condor forward 9 inches and land. I then activate and disembark my Bear APC as part of its own move action. The Bear has a movement of 6 inches, so I place it within 8 inches of the Condor. Ground transports don't have to go only half their move, so after the Bear has gone its full distance of 6 plus 2, or 8 inches, I can then activate the Legionnaires, who also disembark. They only have a movement of 2 inches, so I place the Legionnaire squad within 4 inches of the Bear. Embarking into a transport works the exact same way in reverse. If I want to extract my Legionnaires, I activate their battle group. I also choose to activate the empty bear and the empty condor with them. So my legionnaires then move their movement distance of 2 inches. If one model in the squad ends its move within 2 inches of a transport they can embark into, they can embark into it. So I remove the legionnaires from the board as they scramble into the bear. I then activate the bear, drive at 6 inches, and end it within 2 inches of the condor. It then embarks into the condor. Finally, the condor activates and takes off as part of its move action. As something embarked into it this round, it can only move half its movement, so it moves up to 9 inches. And that's it. Transports can seem a little bit fiddly and complex at first glance, but once you get the hang of it, it's quite an elegant and dynamic system for getting models around the board. As a rule, any impassable terrain, such as buildings, cannot be moved through by ground units. Aircraft, however, can move through them. You simply move the model across the terrain as if it were not there. The only exception is terrain that is at least 8 inches high. These cannot be moved through even by aircraft. Other than that, most aircraft function much the same as ground units when it comes to movement. Fast aircraft work a little differently. Some aircraft will have the fast special rule, like my Archangel Interceptor here. Fast aircraft have both a minimum and maximum movement value, and they must always make a move action when they activate. This can be before or after their shooting action, however. As we can see, my Archangel must move at least 24 inches when it moves, and it can move up to 36 inches. This movement is made in a straight line, but after the movement it can then make a turn of up to 90 degrees. Unlike most units, fast aircraft can and often will leave the battlefield. When they do so, they're simply removed from the board and they go back into in readiness, meaning next battle round they can come back in from your own board edge. The idea is they leave the battlefield and then zoom back over to come in from your edge. As we said, most aircraft cannot fly over buildings that are 8 inches or taller. Fast aircraft can choose to do so by flying high. When they fly high, they are not allowed to make any shooting actions in that activation, so they essentially forfeit firing their guns to get a bit of extra altitude to avoid flying into buildings. Finally, fast aircraft will always start the game in reserve. In reserve means that they cannot activate at all in the first battle round. At the start of the second battle round, all units in reserve move instead into in readiness, meaning they can now come in from your board edge. In our next video, we're going to go over why you're probably all really here, which is how to shoot. Stay tuned.